Hello and welcome to a PHP Basics tutorial on the for loop. The PHP for loop is a loop which loops through a block of code a given number of times until this number is meant to be true. You can set it to loop through a static number of times, so for instance you can set it to loop 10 times, or exactly 15, or 20, or 25. Or it can loop through it a dynamic number of times, so for instance x number of times where x on the page is equal to 5 or x is equal to 10 if the user has done something else, etc. So, without further ado, in order to use a for loop, the syntax is very similar to every other kind of loop and most PHP loops and if statements and other statements, and the fact that you call for, F-O-R, brackets, and then open up a code block. In the code block, the code for the loop, so whatever code you want to be performed as you loop through is performed in here. Oops. And then in these brackets you set the parameters of the loop, and I'll explain what I mean by that right now actually. So there are three main things to specify in your for loop, and these three things are separated by a line terminator or a semicolon, and the three things are the initial value of the variable, what you want to loop until whatever occurs, and then how you are changing the variable that you set the initial value to each time you loop. So the initial value is defined normally using the variable I, and then you set it equal to whatever you want your initial value to be. So for instance, in this case we're going to say the loop will start where I is equal to 1. You can set this to 0, you can set it to 10, you can set it to 100, 1 million, whatever. I think that's more than 1 million actually. Yeah. Anyways, so we're just going to leave it at 1. The next thing is the condition that you want to be met, and so that's your variable in relation to whatever number. So we're going to say while it is less than or equal to 10. So what this is saying, that it's going to loop while I is less than or equal to 10. And again, this can be any number, and this could also be a variable, but we're going to leave it at 10 for now. And then the last condition that you have to provide the loop with is how you want to change the variable. So for instance, in this case we're just going to increment it by 1. So that's I plus plus, and plus plus just increments by 1. So the three parameters again are initial value, the condition to be met, and how you're changing it. So when you start the loop, I will equal 1. If this is not met, when I is equal to 1, it will perform this code. Then it will increment I. I will now be equal to 2, which is still less than or equal to 10, so it will perform the code again, and then be incremented. Checks, performs the code, increments. And again, eventually it would get up to 10, where this would be true, and then it would go down and perform this code. So here, I'll demonstrate what I mean. And just going to use a simple demonstration here, where we're going to echo out I and a break, just to make things neater. I could type. So what this will do is echo out the value of I, so the value of the variable that we're changing. Actually, we're going to change it back to 1, until it is 10. So as you can probably guess, it will print out the numbers 1 through 10, and that is what has been achieved here, because I starts at 1, and then it checks if it's less than or equal to 10, and then it performs the code. First it would echo out 1, and then it increments itself. So now I is equal to 2. And then it checks Is it less than or equal to 10? It is, so it echoes out 2 and a break. And then it increments. And 3, less than or equal to 10? It is, so we echo out a 3. And then it increments itself. And this continues on, you understand what I'm saying, I'm sure, until all the way up until 10. And then when it has echoed out 10, it's been incremented to 10, it sees that it is equal to 10, and so it does not perform that, and it goes down here. So, I hope that makes sense to people, and I'll just give you another example here. Generally speaking, you would never use I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10, and I plus plus if you're just going to echo out I, because you could just echo 1 break, 2 break, 3 break, 4 break, 5, etc. and the static content, and there's no need to run a loop on the page. But let's say that depending on the user input, you're going to loop through variable x times. So we're just going to set variable x is equal to 15. And again, I'm just going to echo out I break. And we'll refresh this page. And we have the numbers 1 through 15, because that would be the same as having a 15 right here. But again, setting a variable like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. So what I'm going to do here is just open up a slight HTML form. If I have a video on form handling and processing in PHP, if you don't understand what's going on here, check that out. So I'm just going to have a text field with the name, number, and just a submit button. Value is equal to count. Okay, so I'm going to define the variable x as equal to the integer value. That's typecasting. When I release my video on security, I will explain that slightly more, but basically all that does is make this type, this whatever variable this is, or whatever string this is, or whatever integer that is, the type of an integer. So this will provide it a number, and this will make it into, so PHP processes it as a number. Okay, so with this code, what I'm going to do is have the user enter a number, and then it's going to echo out the numbers 1 to that number on new lines. So let's go back here, and we'll refresh this page. Oh, undefined index. Don't worry about that, because all that's saying is that the number has not been posted. I'm not actually doing this for the form security, but let's post a number. Let's post 10. If you click count, undefined index number, name number, oh, form, I forgot my method, and action. So method is going to equal post, action is going to equal blank string. That was a silly mistake on my part, I apologize. If you watch my video on form handling, you'll understand what that was. So we'll refresh this page, and then we'll enter 10. Click count, you get the numbers 1 to 10. If you entered 15, numbers 1 through 15, 1, you just get the number 1. 100, and you get all the numbers 1 to 100. So I mean, again, this is kind of a anecdote way of explaining things, but it should show you a little bit more how a for loop can be useful. It does not have to be such static approach to everything. It can be a more dynamic way, a more usability can be increased. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that a for loop is more powerful than just outputting static information. all you have to remember is when you're looking to use a for loop is if you know the number of times or if the page is generating the number of times. If you are, you should be using a for loop. This is pretty much as simple as it gets. These are only very basic for loops. They can get much more complex than this. However, if you are looking to go more complex, the php.net manual page, it's a great reference location, just because this is just meant to give you your basic syntax and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to post or message me. Check out my other videos, and thanks for watching.